Hi, Moyne here. Today I'm talking about homeopathy. What is it? What can it do for you and how do you use it? So, homeopathy is something that a lot of people are confused about. They often want to interchange the word homeopathic with holistic, and they really mean two very different things. Homeopathy is holistic, but not everything that's holistic is homeopathic. So homeopathy is actually really a very specific concept. And it was discovered over 200 years ago by Samuel Hahnemann, the father of homeopathy. And what he discovered was that if he took a substance that caused certain symptoms and he diluted it and shook it in a very specific way a number of times, that the resulting substance would actually remedy the same symptoms that the original substance would cause. And so he gave it the name homeopathy because it literally means like cures like. So let me give you an example of how we would use that. Most people are familiar with syrup of ipecac. It's often included in first aid kits because it will induce vomiting. In someone who has swallowed something that needs to come back up, you would then give them ipecac, which would make them feel sick to their stomach, and then they would throw up. But if you take ipecac and you dilute it and shake it in this very specific way to turn it into a homeopathic remedy, homeopathic ipecac, and we use the Latin names for the original substance to label the homeopathic remedies. So ipecacuanha would be the name of the remedy. If someone had nausea and vomiting, ipecacuanha, homeopathic ipecacuanha, is one of the most common remedies that would be given for that, and it can be incredibly helpful. I have a couple different friends who have been helped immensely through morning sickness during pregnancies by using homeopathic ipecac. Another easy to understand example would be a bee sting. So most people have had experience with being stung by a bee, and you know what that feels like. There's swelling, it's red, it's a stinging sensation, and usually some type of a cold compress or something on it, it helps it to feel better. So if you take that same honeybee venom, and it's named after the honeybee, Apis mellifica, you dilute it and shake it in that special way to create a homeopathic remedy, then that remedy is very, very helpful in any condition that has those same type of symptoms. So obviously a bee sting or possibly a wasp sting would be one, but also a lot of times people will have a sore throat that feels like a bee sting, and it has those same type of symptoms and stinging quality, and cold feels good on it, and that would be a good remedy for a sore throat. So that's kind of just a general example of how we use homeopathy, and we actually match the symptoms to determine what the best remedy will be for any given condition. Homeopathic remedies are described by potency, and Samuel Hahnemann actually found out that the more times he diluted something in this specific way, actually the stronger it became, the more potent. And so, which is completely counterintuitive to what we're used to when we're used to thinking in terms of allopathic medicine. Usually the more you take of something, you think of that as being stronger. But in homeopathy, it's just the opposite. The more times it's been specially diluted, the stronger it becomes and the more deeply that it works. And remedies usually, they always will have a potency listed on them. And there's two main scales, potency scales, dilution scales that you would come in contact with. There's the decimal scale, which is indicated by an X, and the centesimal scale, which is indicated by a C. So if you dilute a substance, one part of the substance to 9 parts of the diluting substance, and success it, which is what they call this special shaking process that they use, and then that would be 1x. Then if you take one part of that substance and put it in 9 parts again and do the same thing, it becomes a 2x substance, and however many times you do that will be the number that would be in front of the x. Then the centesimal scale, the C scale, is the same thing, but it's one part is combined with 99 parts. And every time you do that, it gets another number, the number goes up. So a 30C potency, which is generally pretty much now considered the most common potency to be used, at home in everyday situations, would mean that it was that 1 to 99 part dilution, and that's been done 30 times, and that's how we get the 30C potency. There are other higher potencies, but that's not something that you would ever use in an at-home situation, so we won't talk about those. Okay, so what are the benefits of homeopathy? There are lots of reasons to use it, and first and foremost in my mind is that it is completely safe. You cannot hurt anybody using homeopathy in your home the way that I have been describing so far. If you do it wrong, it just doesn't work. But it's not like a drug or even like a vitamin supplement or an herb. If one of your kids got into certain vitamin supplements, for example, a vitamin A, and consumed a lot of that, that can be actually very dangerous. And certain herbs can be very dangerous, especially if a large quantity is consumed. That is not the case, however, with homeopathy. Even though the potency becomes stronger the more times it's diluted, if there's not a reason for it, then just nothing happens. A child could get into your kit with all your remedies and consume every single pellet of every single remedy in your kit all in one sitting, and the worst that would happen is they might get a little constipated. It doesn't do anything. If you do it wrong, nothing happens. If you do it right, amazing things can happen. So another benefit is that it never expires if you care for it properly. Unlike all those other things, drugs, supplements, herbs, anything like that, they do deteriorate over time. With homeopathic remedies, that's not the case. If they're cared for properly, they never expire. So you don't waste money. You don't have to be concerned that if you have certain remedies on hand in the event that you may use them at some time, but you don't know. And it can take a long time to use up a remedy. It's no problem. It's good for years if you take care of them right, and it's always there and available and not a waste of money. A big benefit, if you've ever tried to get something like, say, cough syrup down a kit, is that they're completely pleasant to take. There's no yucky taste, weird consistency, bitter taste in the back of your mouth, anything like that. The most common remedies and the variety that you would find at your health food store, the remedy is usually in a liquid form, and then it's dropped onto little tiny lactose sugar, milk sugar pellets. And so the only thing they taste of is just sweet. I have never, ever, ever experienced anybody, and not even a very young child or a baby, have any reaction to having that placed in their mouth than, oh, interest, ooh, sweet, that's nice. There's no negative side to it. And I know some people who have issues with lactose intolerance or even a milk allergy might be concerned about it. For the vast majority of people, even who tend to have those issues, the remedies really don't cause any problem. When I very first started learning about homeopathy, it was because of my daughter having some recurrent ear infections, which we did realize had at least a significant part of the basis for that was a milk allergy. Never been a problem to use the remedies at all. They're very tiny, and in fact I can show you one if you can see it. This is teeny tiny, and you just put like 3 to 5, depending on the particular brand or whatever you're using, in the mouth, preferably under the tongue, where there's a large blood vessel there, and it just absorbs right into the bloodstream, and you can often get really, really quick results from that. Another benefit is there are no side effects. None. Sometimes when you very first take a remedy for an acute condition, like say a bad cold, a cough, sometimes the symptoms can increase temporarily in the beginning, and that's really a good sign. It's actually an indication that you've chosen the right remedy and that it's working. If you think about it in something like a cough, if you've got stuff in there that your body's trying to get out, which is why homeopathy is a holistic modality, is that there's stuff in there that's got to come out. And so sometimes coughing will increase in the beginning, but often also it will be accompanied by the cough will change. It will usually become more productive so that you're actually coughing stuff up, and then it's able to then subside and continue to get better from that point. The other thing is you really can't overdose. Everything else you can overdose with homeopathic remedies, you really can't. It's really not a concern. And so from my perspective, and I use a lot of different holistic healing methods, it really is the safest thing that you can do. It's safe if a kid gets into it in your purse. It's safe if a kid gets into your kit. It's safe if you accidentally, use too many or whatever. There really isn't anything that you can do. If you do it wrong, it just doesn't work. But nothing bad's going to happen. Okay, so when you're using homeopathy, there are some rules. They're not complicated, and there's not a ton of them, but they are very important, and they really make a big difference in whether or not you're successful, whether or not you feel like the homeopathic remedy works. So one of the first rules, and they will never ever say this on the package, and I don't know why, but you don't touch them, okay? Because they are so diluted, they're very, very easily contaminated. And so you don't want to handle them. Now it's okay if you want to drop them into the hand, from the container into the hand of the person who's going to take them, but then they're apt to drop them, and once anything that falls on the floor, you need to just throw it away. Not because we're worried about germs or dirt, but because they're that easily contaminated. And so it's just easy to make it so that they're just not going to work. So you always want to use something that's fresh and that hasn't been touched or dropped on the floor or had anything else any way introduced to it. And that's really important. My very first introduction to homeopathy, and I've had so many conversations with people who had this identical experience that I think it's worth noting here. My first experience was with homeopathic teething tablets. And, I saw them in the baby aisle of probably Walmart or Target or something like that. And, I didn't really know what homeopathy was, but I knew enough to know that that was something holistic, and that really appealed to me, as opposed to the actually pretty potent drugs that are involved in the teething syrups and things that they put on babies' gums when they're teething. So I definitely wanted to give that a try. And at first, oh my gosh, it was really helpful. You've got this really fussy, crying, miserable baby, and you give them the teething tablets and they settle right down the first few times. But after a while, and I don't know what they look like now, but I know that back when I bought them, the container had like a stopper top in it, and so it wasn't like you could even try to pour them into the cap or anything to get the right amount of them, and it didn't tell you any otherwise. So you'd pour it in your hand, you'd take the ones to give the baby, you'd pour the rest back in the bottle, and you'd do that every single time, right? And then, because it was a little bit of an awkward type of a package, when you're dealing with a fussy kid, you drop it. You knock them over. They go all over the floor. You scoop them all back up into the bottle. And after you've done that, a few times, it's like, yeah, it just doesn't seem to be working anymore. And everybody I've ever talked to has had that identical experience. Well, it's not because homeopathy didn't work. It's because they were completely contaminated from being handled and dropped all over the floor. So it is important that you take good care of them. So this is one of the brands, probably the most commonly found brand in most health food stores in the United States. There'll be a blue dispenser, and it'll have all these different remedies, all the little blue tubes in alphabetical order by the name of the remedy. And it is the handiest little thing so that you don't waste them, and it makes it very easy to keep from contaminating them. They have this really great little dispenser lid. It's impossible to spill. Nothing can come out. When you turn the lid, it'll dispense one. And so you turn it again, there's a second, and there's a third. And then it's a nice little deep cap, and it's really easy to just tip it into the mouth of the person that you're giving it to. Another thing that can antidote remedies are strong scents. Particularly, they've found that mint, menthol, and camphor are really antidoting substances. So one thing that people tend to not really think about too much is mint toothpaste. Most people probably use a toothpaste that's mint, and if you take a remedy and then go brush your teeth with mint toothpaste, it's probably going to antidote it. Not necessarily for all people, but for a lot of people it does. I know for my daughter, it's just the tiniest bit of mint, that's it, she's done. Another common thing that would contain any of those substances would be cough drops, and a lot of times people want to use those salves that have menthol and or camphor in them, like rubbing on somebody's chest if they have a cold, or under their nose. Okay, you don't ever want to use those in conjunction with homeopathy. And essential oils are the same thing. A lot of people are getting more interested in using essential oils for different things, and those are fine, but they can really antidote homeopathic remedies. So those are things that you probably really don't want to use together. My personal experience is that I've had a lot more success, a lot more benefits from homeopathy than from essential oils. So that's my personal choice, and you just have to, decide what works best for you. Another thing would be a clean mouth. You always want to take it on a clean mouth, so you really don't want to take a remedy. You want to wait at least 15-20 minutes after eating, and you probably want to wait at least 15 or 20 minutes after a remedy before you eat. Water's fine, that's not a problem, but just anything else that you might have in your mouth could possibly contaminate it. So it's just a safe bet to just take it on a clean mouth. You can wait a little bit longer before you take it, or before you eat afterward, just to make sure that it's doing its thing and it's not going to be antidoted. Another rule is that, unlike other supplements or drugs, you don't take them repeatedly. Once the remedy starts to do its job, which it works differently than other substances, once it starts to do its job, what it does is it actually ignites the vital force to take over and for your body to heal itself. It's not really the substance per se that's doing the job. And so once that has taken place, then there's no need to take any more at all, unless and until it stalls out, it stops working, then you may need to take another dose. But it's not like a painkiller or even an herb or something where you would keep repeating it, and even after the symptoms are done, keep taking it for a certain amount of time. Not how it works. Which is also, a lot less hassle and a great savings of money. And so, but that is one thing that people often have to overcome, is that idea that that you have to take it a certain number of times. And often the packages will actually say on them, repeat it 4 times a day or every 4 hours or something like that. I don't know why some of the stuff is on the packages, but it is my understanding that some of it is because the FDA makes them do that, even though it has absolutely no bearing whatsoever on homeopathic remedies. So again, that's just one paradigm shift that you have to make when you're working with homeopathic remedies, that it's not the same. It works differently, and we don't just keep taking it and taking it. One of the trickiest things I think for people to learn in using homeopathic remedies is that we're matching the symptoms. And so there could be several remedies for headaches. I mean, there are several remedies that work on headaches. And it's because all headaches aren't alike. One person's headache can be in a different area. It can have different quality to it. One's pounding, somebody else's is bursting, somebody else's is a dull ache, somebody else's is sharp, like a knife stuck in your head. And each of those different type of symptoms is going to line up with a different remedy. And so we're always looking at the specific symptoms and the quality of those symptoms of the person who is, suffering from something, and matching them as closely as we can with the remedy that we choose. I know that one time my daughter had a horrible sore throat, and I knew the remedy that she needed, and for those very specific symptoms, it was just very, very acute. She could hardly talk or swallow, dragon breath, all those things. And I went to the health food store, and they didn't have that particular remedy. And the the clerk asked me, well, what did I want it for? And I said, well, it was for a sore throat. And she said, oh, well, this one over here, this is one that people use a lot for sore throats. And I looked at it and, yeah, okay, that's a completely different sore throat. It wouldn't have done her any good whatsoever because it was completely different symptoms. It was totally not indicated for her type of sore throat. Fortunately, I have a source that I was able to order it and have it overnight and get her to take the one that was actually going to help her, and that was and it was really helpful to her. But the one at the health food store wouldn't have done any good. So the way that some companies, manufacturers handle that, the fact that most people aren't familiar enough with homeopathy to know how to choose a remedy, they have invented combination remedies. And there's a lot of confusion around that. I think sometimes, especially, you know, one of the latest things is for drug companies to either start a branch of homeopathic remedies, or they'll buy, you know, some company to have this subsidiary just to get into that market. And you know, they don't even have marketing that understands how homeopathy works. And so sometimes they may even convey the message that, oh, there's some synergistic reason that it's this combination. It's not. It's just, say a remedy is listed for headaches. They'll take maybe the 5, anywhere from 3 to probably 7 or 8 most commonly used remedies for headaches, and they'll just combine them, hoping that they're just betting that the one that you need is probably going to be one of those, and so that's the one that's going to work for you. The others just won't do anything. And that actually can be very helpful. Allergy remedies are really good that way. We've tried different ones before we learned how to get rid of allergies completely at our house. For hay fever, we've used different ones, and I would try one combination remedy, and you know, for a kid, and we'd find the one that worked for him, and then we'd use that one. Sometimes we'd go through 3 different ones till we found the one that worked. And then I'd compare them and see, you know, what ingredient was in that one that wasn't in the other ones, because that was probably the one that his body was needing. But those can be a way. That's what the homeopathic teething tablets are. There's you know, different ones that have that, and if you're not sure you're finding the right one, you know, that can be a way to get started. But just know, if it doesn't work, it's not that homeopathy doesn't work, it's just that the remedy that your body is needing to match symptoms just isn't in that particular combination. But unfortunately, that's one reason people often think homeopathy doesn't work, because the one they need just doesn't happen to be in that combination that they purchased, and so it doesn't really help. I just want to share with you one story, probably my first really big success that was really notable with homeopathic remedies, was with dealing with croup. And I know probably all the moms and probably a lot of the dads are familiar with the whole scenario, what goes on when the baby, the child wakes up in the middle of the night with croup. You hear that horrible, awful, miserable cough, they're wheezing, they're trying to get their breath, and you know it's going to be one of those nights nobody's going to get any meaningful sleep the rest of the night. That was certainly always my experience with it. Shortly after I had started studying and learning about homeopathy and learning about the different kind of personalities of the different remedies, I remember reading about the most common remedy for croup and some of the indications for it, and being really excited, thinking, oh wow, this will be good if we ever have to deal with that again. It'll be wonderful to be able to try that remedy. So sure enough, you know, several months later, here we go, you know, 1 o'clock in the morning, here's the baby waking up with croup. And so initially I had my husband take her outside, you know, the normal things you do with croup. You take them out in the damp night air, right? Or you take them in and turn the shower on really hot to just get some steam to ease their breathing. So I sent him outside with her into the night air while I went to double check my book. I was pretty sure I knew the remedy, but I wanted to double check, and sure enough, homeopathic aconite was the right remedy. And some of the indications for that, croup is one thing it's often used for. Definitely coughs, often brought on by exposure to cold, dry air. They come on very, very suddenly. And so I went and got the remedy, went outside, gave her a dose of it, and my husband and I were, you know, talking for a few minutes, and Back then, when I was first learning, I was using much lower potencies, so often you have to repeat those in a few minutes. So after we talked for a few minutes, I gave her a second dose, and then she was calming down and seemed to be okay. And so we thought, all right, well, it's been like 15-20 minutes so far since she woke up, but everything seems to be fine. And so we went in and went back to bed, and everybody slept the whole rest of the night. Never had any experience like that with croup ever before, and that was just it. And I was sold. I knew that this was something that I needed to learn more about, and I was really excited for the possibility for my family's future. And it has repeatedly blessed my life, my family's life, over the 2 decades now that I've been studying and using homeopathy. So if this is something that's interesting to you and you'd like to learn more about it, there are a lot of great resources on my website. You can check out the link. All my favorite resources for best information for learning about it, and also best resource books, and even the best way to put together your kit most cost effectively, to have the remedies that you want to have on hand for the most common conditions that you'll be dealing with. All that information is there, so check it out. I hope that helps. If you're really interested to get started in homeopathy right away, and you really want some help and support in doing that beyond the resources that are listed, I'm getting ready to start a class. So it's going to be Homeopathy 101, and I'm going to give you all the basics. I'm going to help you learn to use the best resources, put together your kit, and give you lots of support and coaching in practicing, learning how to choose the remedies, how to give them, and all of that. There'll be some calls that we're going to do, as well as an interactive online study guide and forum with the other class members that I will be answering questions every day and helping you, coaching you through your experience of learning how to use homeopathy. So if that sounds fun, please come join me. Check out the link, and I hope to see you in class.